At 8 minutes past 9, we continue with Africa World Hour. In the program later on, we'll be speaking about Tanzania's Party for Democracy and Progress, also known as Chadema. It appears to be continuing in its no reforms, no election stance, as we tell you about protests about the upcoming elections in that part of the continent. But first, let's start with news from here and our neighbor. The Zambian government welcoming an order by the South African Constitutional Court refusing the family of the late former President Edgar Lungu access to directly appeal an earlier judgment of the Pretoria High Court. The court had found that the Zambian government is entitled to repatriate Lungu's remains for the purpose of a state funeral and burial. South Africa's apex court has found that no case had been made out for a direct appeal, rather. Zambia's Secretary of Cabinet, Patrick Kangwa, says the government's position on the issue remains unchanged. Let's hear from a political analyst what we should be talking about, how the discussion ought to be framed. And we're talking here to political analyst Dr. Euston Chiputa, who joins us via Zoom from Zambia. A very good evening to you, Dr. Chiputa. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We've spoken to your colleagues, we've spoken to political parties. From your point of view, what has been the sentiment expressed by Zambians about what is going on, this legal wrangling over the remains of the former President Edgar Lungu, and how the matter is being handled as well?
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me. First things first, I think in my view, as an historian first and foremost, we would like, and I know that millions other Zambians would like the 60th Republican President's body, Edgar Lungu's body, to be repatriated back home and to be treated in the best manner possible, just as other 5 presidents before him who have died either in office or after leaving office have been buried at Embassy Park with dignity and honor, and everything done in the best interest of the state, in the best interest of the Zambian people. However, with regard to late President Edgar Lungu's case, the issue is protracted, it's polarized between the family and the party, the Patriotic Front on one hand, and the state, the nation of Zambia, on the other hand, represented by the government that the people elected. However, the challenge that I see, the biggest challenge, is that there are all sorts of conspiracy theories on both sides of the divide. There are conspiracy theories that are peddled as emanating or purported to be emanating from the family. There are also conspiracy theories that are purported to be emanating from the state. And neither of these have forthrightly said any of those or mentioned any of those conspiracy theories. And to me, that is part of the problem, because really, at the end of the day, 2 months and beyond down the road since the demise of our 60th Republican president, we still have not found common ground to resolve the impasse and be able to bury his remains in the manner befitting of a former president.
Can I be blunt and ask the question? Is this humane, what is going on? The family has steadfastly said that the former president had stipulations that were to be respected post his passing. And one of those major stipulations was that President Hichilema not be not be present, and it seems as if the wrangling also is over the process and procedure, who should be there around the body of the deceased, something which the family believes they really ought to have the final say on, irrespective of whether or not he was a former president. And we spoke to the president of the Socialist Party, Fred Membe, who is a friend, who also said, as a lawyer, there is no legal precedent for the action that has been taken by the Zambian government. Your thoughts on these things?
Well, that is correct, that there may not be a legal precedent. But you see, it's not everything that is written in the statutes of law that we follow as human beings. There are certain conventions that become established by way of tradition. The situation at hand of having had 6 former presidents buried in the same place, using the same procedure, using the same process, may not be enshrined in law, but it's a tradition that we have folled.
Was it
conventional.
Was it the wish of former President Kenneth Kaunda to be buried where he is today?
No, it was not necessarily his wish, but the children said Dr. Kaunda had wished to be buried beside his wife. But there were negotiations between the state and the children, and eventually the children heard the view of the state and agreed to have him buried beside his other his compatriots who had fallen before him.
So,
and in this regard, this is where we are, as a country, are driving to. And I think this is where the Zambian government is driving to. Because you see, if today we say, okay, this is the wish of late President Lungu, let's bury him in South Africa or let's bury him elsewhere, what shall we have done to what we have established as a tradition? We will have said it's null and void. And so the rest of the family members may then demand the bodies of their their fallen heroes to be exhumed and taken away and buried where they want. What shall we have done regarding the peace and unity of this country?
So I want to
we will
get
have
to that,
created
Dr.
a very big problem.
We have seen negotiations with the family. They've fallen apart because it is believed that there was a breach on some of the major points of agreement. Now, in this case as well, when the family said that it will appeal the judgment, we were made to believe that there were still further talks. But the family has argued, and those of the supporters or close friends of former President Lungu have said that he, including his family, he was not treated well while he was alive, even after he was no longer a president. Therefore, they believe it not only is it his wish, but they also believe, from their point of view, that his wishes need to be respected of how he needs to be buried. So are we then suggesting that their steadfast refusal to compromise on that which they believe is the final wishes of their father, their friend, their relative, that they are wrong in not wanting to renege on those promises made?
Well, you see, the issue is this, that the wishes of the former president are indeed respected. And I, for one, I am yet to hear that the Republican president is insisting that he must view the body. I have not heard that from him. And no one in this country, or even where you are, has heard that from him. However, as human beings,
you suggesting that
Africans,
is the stickler point? Are you suggesting that this is why we are at this point, that the family is insisting to bury Edgar Lungu here in South Africa because there is an understanding, or it is being insinuated, that the president wants to view the body of the former president? Because I've certainly not said that. But are you suggesting that that is a stickler point and that's why we are where we are?
No, I don't think it is the only point, but it's one of those. If you remember, right at the beginning, after the death, when President Lungu's body was almost buried in South Africa, and so the Zambian state went to court there in Pretoria. It was one of the arguments raised. It is not the only argument. There are other arguments, but my view is this: that look, as Africans, as human beings, and as Christians, I think there comes a time, no matter how much grief you have, and I really feel for the family, and the Zambians feel for the family of the late president in the manner things are unfolding. But at the end of the day, there comes a time when you feel that forgiveness is important for those that may have transgressed against President Lungu then. And also that it's important to say that as Christians, sometimes we need to leave things to God.
It would seem, Dr. Chiputa, you are suggesting that it's a family that needs to let it go. It's a family that needs to say, let us let the Zambian government do what it wants to do. And you mentioned something about being the fact that you're a historian earlier on, but you also spoke about tradition. As a historian, you also know that tradition evolves over time. Sometimes things that are not even known or practiced suddenly become tradition a generation later because they've been done enough. So are you saying there is no room for the family to practice its agency, to put their foot down and say, no, we are carrying out the wishes of our loved one, and this is what he wanted, and it was written down, and we will not relent?
Well, there's every room, and that is why we are where we are, because the government of Zambia and the people of Zambia have respected the wishes of the family. That is why 2 months down the road, we still have not found a solution. And I believe that is why there are still discussions going on between the family and the government to come to a common understanding as to what is in the best interest of the family and what is in the best interest of the nation. Because, it takes two parties to tango. And so when we have these two sides, we need to establish what is best for the family and what is best for the government.
I want to ask one final question.
Is, like I said earlier,
I want to ask one final question, and I do apologize for cutting in. It's just that we are running out of time. And it's a very important question because we're talking about African tradition and spirituality, most importantly. Is it possible for the president of Zambia to speak to the people and say, let us relent? And I ask this against the backdrop of those who do question whether or not the departed is at peace, given what is going on.
Well, I wouldn't speak for the government because I'm not in government, but I know that when negotiations are going on, when court cases are going on, it is normal and it's advisable, even for the president, not to move in and say, this is what we should do, because the case has been in court. It's only today we have been told that the apex court in South Africa has declined to hear the case. And perhaps it may go to another court. We do not know what the family is thinking. So really, in such cases, I think it's advisable even for government leaders to have a wait-and-see approach and allow the family perhaps to do what is best in the interest of not just the late president, but in the interest of the family.
It's
but
an
at the end of the
interesting
day,
point of view, and I can't
national interest is also important.
and it's an interesting point that you've just raised there, and I'm afraid I can't let it go, because you seem to be suggesting that the court case is independent of the president, who's actually head of a government. So at whose behest have they gone to court? And that is the Attorney General. Are you saying that it is possible that they're doing it independently of the president? Because to suggest that he has in no way any sway, I find that rather interesting.
Well, it's not independent of the president, because the president is the head of state. But you see, the challenge we have in Zambia is this, that if today Hakainde Hichilema says, can we stop this and do this? There will be all sorts of accusations against him, just like there are all sorts of accusations even now. So sometimes it is best to allow certain processes to run their course. But I must emphasize that I am alive to the fact that the negotiations are also going on even while the court cases were going on. So I wish we could now just settle for the negotiations and have a give and take situation, resolve the impasse, and then have a solution, and then we move the situation forward.
Dr. Euston Chiputa, thank you so much for your time and your patience and allowing me to interrupt you. It's a very important discussion, and I think as many perspectives on this is important, and that's how we come to the end of this interview, 25 minutes past